Hi everyone, thanks for clicking on my video. This is Soft and Spicy, and I'm gonna give my reaction to the Diddy Netflix documentary. And it basically outlines what a monster Diddy is and how he's been a monster for like all of his career or all of his life. And even like a lot of the people that are giving interviews in this documentary that is painting the picture about how bad Diddy is, and Diddy is evil. That's true, but also a lot of the people that were filmed and doing interviews within this documentary are also complicit and very shady people themselves. Um, so yeah, a lot of the people while watching this documentary kind of pissed me off at certain points. So anyway, let's get into it. Let's start with episode one. This episode, it opens up with Diddy talking on the phone, and he's like tweaking. As he's talking like nervous, his voice is shaking, his hand is shaking. He's tweaking, and he's talking about his court case, and then I think he's either talking to his lawyer or his publicist, talking about like they're not doing a good job at protecting him or protecting his image, and that, you know, his image is being dragged all over CNN and social media. And it sounded like he was saying he was asking for like a propagandist, like he was talking about like how they need to take control of the messaging, take control of the story, and like spin his story. And I'm like, first off, the fact that this footage is footage that Diddy filmed himself, like he hired somebody to film him while he's going through a federal court case. Like why? Like why would you film yourself at your lowest point? You're being charged by not even a state charge. You're being charged by the United States of America for RICO charges. Why would you film that? Like most people would not want, you know, a cameraman following them around during a very stressful moment in their life. And it really seems like he thought he was going to get away with it and that he was going to win and have some big victory story, like similar to like how when OJ Simpson was acquitted for unaliving his wife back in 1995, like Diddy thought he was going to have that story. So it might have been just hubris, thinking like, oh, this is going to be like a great victory story, I'm going to beat this case and I'm going to catch everything on camera. But like, I don't know, that's a lot of audacity to believe that when you know yourself you've been doing dirt for 30, 40 years. So then it goes into showing clips of Diddy throwing temper tantrums. His employees are just talking about what it's like to work for Diddy and how demanding he is. And then they show a clip of Diddy like throwing things around his office, throwing chairs around his office. And like this is all like within the first 5 minutes. And you know, Diddy, he's supposed to be the CEO of Bad Boy Records. He's supposed to be this big mogul, but he's like throwing temper tantrums like like a child. And I'm like, that's not normal for like the leader of a business to do, and to do that in front of their employees. Like it doesn't look cool, it doesn't look intimidating, it looks like very corny. Like I've been around like leaders in corporate America, and they don't act like that. Even when they're irritated, they might have like a cold, sharp demeanor. But all that like yelling that Diddy does is just showing like dysregulated behavior, and it's just giving very childish. Like he never really matured. He acts like a teenager in my opinion. So then they talk about his upbringing back in the late 80s. They showed his experience back at Uptown Records with Heavy D and Andre Harrell. And he looks very different back in the day. Like, look at how his jaw looks. And in the documentary, they even use like a worse picture than this. I'm actually being nice here. But yeah, they showed this picture of Diddy from back in the day where his jaw just looks like so like, I don't know if it's like a lazy jaw or what it is. Like he can't close his mouth. He looks like a mouth breather. And like his face looks like especially like the bottom part of his face looks very different now than it did back in the day. But he was like pretty funny looking back in the day. It looks like he got some type of, in my opinion, it looks like he got some type of facial surgery, some type of jaw surgery, or if I don't know if it's just like the veneers that evened out the bottom of his mouth. But I don't know. He was just like a funny looking young guy. So it says that he lived with Andre Harrell. So Andre Harrell, he was the CEO of Uptown Records. And he took Diddy under his wing. And they lived together. And then my gaydar went up based on the picture that they showed in the documentary. There was this one picture they showed where um Diddy's hand was resting on the back of Andre's neck. And I was like, that's pretty intimate for kind of like a father figure, but the guy's not even related to you. He's your, I guess, boss slash father figure. I was like, that's a little familiar to just be resting your hand on the back of another man's neck like that. But anyway, then they start talking about how his mother raised him. They said that Diddy's mom dressed him like a little pimp with a chinchilla fur coat. And it reminds me of how some women, even today, they dress their sons like rappers. Like they'll have like little babies with like big chains around their neck, or like Rolex, a little baby Rolex on their arm. So that's what it made me think of. If you want to compare it to something like today, basically dressing your son up like the man you would want to be with type thing, which is weird. Um, what else did they say? They said that Diddy, as a child, was a goofy who got picked on a lot, and he got beat up by the other kids, and then he also got beat really badly by his mom, and his mom taught Diddy to be violent. Um, and it's disappointing because it plays into stereotypes of single black moms raising their sons badly. And I've already heard like a lot of people on social media, like, blame not only blaming his mom, but just blaming moms in general, or single black moms in general, about men who don't turn out okay. But honestly, Janice, Diddy's mom, is actually a demon herself. They show a little bit of her background. Like, she was like in the streets. She was in the, I think she was running drugs or running girls. And then she chose to be with Diddy's father, who was a well-known, I guess, drug dealer, um, who actually died during a drug deal. So I wouldn't say Janice is like the average mom, or the average single black mom, because I mean most black moms aren't running drug schemes or sex trafficking schemes, right? So I don't think people should be using Janice Combs and her bad mothering as an excuse to paint like a broad brush about how single black mothers raise their children. This is a unique case where Diddy's father was very high up in the gang or drug affiliation, and he was in the streets. And then Janice, she was also in the streets herself, and then she raised Puffy to look up to his dead father, and she told him stories about um his father, and basically raised him to be just like his father, and told Diddy about all the toxic things that he did. And but she kind of glorified his father, and she raised him under toxic masculinity. And I feel like that's not really a normal kind of case. That's kind of a unique case to Diddy's background, having two parents that were heavily involved in the streets. So that's not the same as kind of just like your average single black mom trying to do her best in raising her son. Janice purposely and specifically exposed Diddy to the darker side of life, and she would go on drug runs or whatever type of run she would go on, and she would bring Diddy along with her on her drug runs. So I think this is just unique that Diddy is a demon who was born to two parents who were both demons. The next segment talks about one of the first instances where Diddy was exposed for being a degenerate. In this photo, you'll see it's Diddy and Joy Dickerson. Acting for a music video. And Joy Dickerson is a woman that he met, a young woman that he met at a party, and he asked her to be in this music video. And in this music video, he's playing a pimp. He's playing her pimp in the music video. And then later, she finds out there's been a Smex tape of her floating around. And this was news to her. She just heard it from other people, and she did not even realize that she had intimate intercourse with Diddy. So she was SA'd, and she didn't even know it because she was likely, drugged or unconscious, because that is part of Diddy's MO. And so she was horrified to find out that everyone has been seeing like a Smex tape of her while she was unconscious, and she didn't even know that she was SA'd. And she did speak up about it. She told her mom, and then her mom wrote a letter to Diddy's mom about it, but I don't think her case got very far, because even though there are witnesses and people saw the sex tape, no one was willing to back her story, even though people saw her being assaulted on tape, because Diddy was becoming popular in the neighborhood because of his position at Uptown Records, and so many people wanted to just ride his coattails and didn't want to make an enemy out of Diddy. So her story was kind of like suppressed. And obviously, this was like the early 90s. So things were even worse than they are now as far as people listening to women. And she had to suffer through that, for many years. The next segment talks about the incident that took place at the City College of New York, where Diddy was the organizer for Uptown Records. It was a celebrity basketball game. So Diddy was in charge of it for Uptown, and there were rappers there like Heavy D and other rappers. So the public was excited to see the rappers play basketball and then have a chance to meet them and get their autograph. So apparently, the event was kind of like over marketed, and it doesn't seem like there was like proper like security in place. And it was Diddy's event, so he was in charge and he would have been responsible for capacity. So the event was at capacity, but there were so many people standing outside um, that weren't allowed to come in. And it's possible that maybe some of the people had bought tickets, but they still weren't able to come in even though they bought tickets. So that part wasn't really clear. So it could be that might be another reason that caused the stampede. But essentially, like, people were trying to get in, and I guess the people waiting outside decided to bum rush the stadium. So there should have been like security or people like doing like crowd control. And if there were people like who maybe bought tickets but weren't able to come in, they should have been like refunded. Or if there were so many people outside, they could have said like, we're at capacity for like safety reasons in the building, but once the basketball game is over, the rappers will be coming outside where you can take pictures and autographs and things like that. So, but yeah, there was no crowd control, and the crowd just bum rushed the doors. And from that stampede, people got crushed through the doors, because I think the doors, like, they don't open all the way, or they only open one way or something like that. So some people got crushed like in between the doors, or people got stomped on, trampled, and things like that. And 9 people died, and then like 20 something people were injured. And it was this event that really that actually put Diddy's name in the newspaper. I believe this is like the first time where his name was actually like in mainstream newspapers, and the public really know who he was, and he was the spokesperson for the event. So he got on TV and he gave like a little sob story, and he did like all this pro black power stuff, and people forgave him for the most part. He was able to get away with this negligent deaths. This was like negligent homicide basically, but he was able to get away with it because number one, um most and maybe all of the people who died were black, right? So at that time, the media or the police didn't really care about black people dying. And he was also a very good speaker. He held a press conference, and he knows what to say at the right time. He is a Scorpio, so that's one of the traits of a water sign. Cancers, Pisces, Scorpios, they're really good with their words, and he knows how to talk, and he knows how to talk in a very soft spoken way in interviews. So he was able to like garner sympathy, and make it seem like this was just a freak accident that he had no control of, and people forgave him, and he got fame off of all these people's deaths. So instead of Diddy getting in trouble at work for his negligence, he actually got more success. Andre Harrell put Diddy in charge of Jodeci and Mary J. Blige. So this is where they talk about his relationship with like Misa Hilton, and how she was dating or talking to Eric Sermon, and she might have been underage allegedly when she was dating Eric Sermon. But either way, Diddy, I guess, was kind of jealous of her relationship with Eric Sermon. So Diddy made it his mission to kind of steal her away from Eric Sermon. And obviously he was successful. That was his MO. And, he likes to go after women that have interests in other men, especially other men around him that he works with. And it just seems like it's a way to validate himself so he can show that he can get the same type of girls that the other guys can get, and not even the same type of girl, like he can get the same exact girl that other guys got. And that's a little weird if he's purposely trying to sleep with the same woman that the men around him are sleeping with. It's kind of giving like cuckold a little bit. And he doesn't have any genuine interest in these women as human beings and partners. And then once he gets them, right, once he gets them away from the guy they were seeing before, he starts beating them and treating them badly. Next, they talk about how Diddy got fired from Uptown Records because he was getting too big for his britches, and, he wasn't listening to Andre Harrell anymore, and you can't have two bosses or two cooks in the kitchen. So Andre fired him, and then he was able to take Biggie from Uptown Records along with him, and then Diddy ended up signing and creating Bad Boy Records under Arista Records. And Arista Records is ran by Clive Owens, who you see pictured here. So Bad Boy LLC was an imprint under Arista, and Diddy put Bad Boy under his mother's name so that people from the college incident couldn't sue him for the deaths. So Bad Boy was actually created as a response to West Coast rap, which I didn't know at the time. So this was the early 90s, and West Coast was actually running the gangster rap genre, and Bad Boy was a response to that. And Tupac was already out first and he was already popping. And they positioned Biggie to kind of be the East Coast version of Tupac. And at first they got along. Tupac and Biggie got along. They respected each other's craft and they kind of had a friendship. And Tupac was really like taking Biggie under his wing. I have a correction. The Caucasian man in this photo's name is Clive Davis, not Clive Owens. Clive Owens is a English actor. Clive Davis is here and he's the music executive. This leads us to episode 2 that opens up with Diddy's birthday party and he's wearing matching outfits with Biggie. Um, and in the documentary, they didn't have any like photos like side by side, but here are some photos here where you can clearly see they're both wearing like the same type of suit at the party. And it's just like one is pinstripe and then Diddy's is gray. And it actually kind of reminded me of how Diddy matches his clothes with, Meek Mill, and him and Meek Mill are known to have a very close relationship. So there's a pattern here. Diddy likes to match clothes with his homies, but I've never seen him do this type of matchy match set with his any of his girlfriends. And it's kind of funny, like usually on your birthday you want to stand out. I haven't really seen anyone have a birthday party where they want to match with their friend. It's usually on your birthday where you want to wear something different and stand out. But at this particular birthday, Diddy and Biggie were wearing like similar suits and similar top hats, just in different colors. Tupac liked Biggie, but he didn't like Diddy and didn't want to have anything to do with Diddy. And then Tupac got shot at Diddy's music studio. And this is the photo you're seeing here after he got shot. And then Diddy said Pac got robbed and that Diddy said he had nothing to do with it. But the shooters left behind an 80K Rolex that Tupac was wearing. So it doesn't sound like a robbery if you're leaving valuables behind, right? So it sounds like a hired hit because Diddy was jealous, and that's kind of what started this is something that kind of like increased the tension between Tupac, Biggie, and Diddy. And I do think Tupac knew that, Diddy was really the one responsible for it because Tupac had a good relationship with Biggie. And he probably felt that Diddy was kind of like, kind of jealous of the friendship that Biggie and Tupac had, and Diddy probably felt intimidated. And Diddy does seem like the one. He gets intimidated by other men very easily. That's what I'm kind of picking up from this documentary. Like he gets triggered very easily. He has like a very very like a very weak ego that's easily bruised, and that's why he behaves the way he does. Like any little thing, he lashes out. Next, the documentary goes back into how Diddy likes for men to watch him have intercourse with other women. And the employee on the screen, this is Kirk Burrows. He was a founder and then an employee of Bad Boy Records, but he recalled a time where Diddy called him into his office while Diddy was getting head from a woman. And, Kirk goes, "Oh, did you need something from me?" And then Diddy goes, "No, I don't need anything." So he literally just called Kirk into the office so that Kirk could watch Diddy getting head. So, yeah, Diddy is a fucking loser. And yeah, he's just a weirdo, bro. Like, I feel like if Diddy was like a regular guy working a 9 to 5, like working at like some warehouse job or something, like he's the dude that people like would avoid. Like he would be like the outcast, like of any like job place. Like everybody would be like, yo, that's that weird guy. Like everybody would be like avoiding him because the only way he can get away with this behavior is because he has money. But like, yo, is zesty as hell. Next, they talk about Diddy's bad business practices. And this guy here, Kirk Burrows, he was a founding member of Bad Boy Records along with Diddy. And Kirk did a lot of the paperwork, like a lot of the accounting, a lot of the maintenance. He did a lot of the scheduling for like the different events and things like that. And then Diddy was more so like the face of it and recruiting the talent. And Diddy had a 75% stake and Kirk had a 25% stake. And then after some time, Diddy came into Kirk's office with a baseball bat and made Kirk sign over the remaining 25% to him, and put everything in his mother Janice Combs' name, and to evade, any future lawsuits that he knew he was probably going to get. And then Kirk stayed on as an employee, and he was no longer an owner. And then Diddy also forced himself in his artist songs and music videos. So it wasn't just because he wanted to support his artists that you saw him in the background of the music videos, like dancing or driving a car or doing something random in the background. And you would hear his voice on his artist songs, like saying, take that, and just talking in the background, or he might have like a little verse on it. He wasn't just doing that to be supportive of his artists. He was using that as an excuse to pay himself off of his artist talent. And then he would also charge his artists to use the studio that he owned. So his clients were recording in the music studio, and then he himself owned, and then he would charge his artists like all these exorbitant studio fees. And then the contract that he had with his talent was basically that his talent would become, famous, but Diddy was like siphoning a lot of the money from it, and that Diddy would make the money and they would just be the talent. And, most of the artists were just very young, ignorant, uneducated, and just naive and inexperienced. And he took advantage of that. So that's why so many of his artists complain that they never got paid or they didn't get paid appropriately because of all these little tricks that he would do, that people didn't realize at the time, where he was just paying himself off of a lot of the work that his talent did. Next, they talk about Diddy's jealousy towards Suge Knight, because again, Suge Knight doesn't like him because Diddy, he's surrounding himself with street dudes in the industry, but Diddy, he's not a street dude himself. His parents were street people. He spent a lot of time around street people, but he himself was not street, and he was a cornball. He couldn't really fight. He only fought women. And so anybody who's a real street dude like Suge, like they all see him as a goofy. So Diddy and Suge didn't get along, but they were both at the same nightclub in Atlanta. So it was Suge's crew and it was Diddy's crew at the same nightclub. Suge was with his best friend and they were all standing outside of the nightclub, and somebody comes up to the group and shoots Suge's best friend. The friend's name is Jake, and immediately Suge, on instinct, he grabs Diddy and by the neck. He grabs Diddy by the neck and uses Diddy as like a human shield, and then the shooter like runs away. So instinctively, Suge knew that Diddy set that up, and that's what caused the tension from Suge's side. So now Suge has beef with Diddy. They didn't at first. So the tension really started from Diddy. Diddy was jealous of Tupac. Diddy was jealous of Suge Knight. Diddy was jealous of the entire West Coast because they were running gangster rap at that time. So he was doing these little things, getting Tupac shot, getting Suge's best friend shot, and that's what caused the West Coast and Suge Knight to retaliate and have a hatred towards Diddy. And it's good to have that context because even though Sugar's a bad guy himself, Sugar's a bad guy himself. He is in jail right now for vehicular manslaughter, so he's a bad person. But Suge was always seen as the aggressor just because of his personality, and he probably is an aggressor in a lot of cases. But when it comes to this particular why why this rap beef started between Tupac and Biggie, Death Row and Bad Boy, it was initiated by Diddy. It wasn't initiated by Suge, but Suge is such a fiery personality, an Aries. So in typical Aries fashion, he's just gonna react, and his reaction is always gonna be aggressive every time. That's just like the natural personality trait of an Aries. And Diddy being a Scorpio, which is literally like the opposite of an Aries, where he's a water sign, and instead of just being like aggressive to your face, especially when it comes to men, he's going to be sneaky, he's going to be manipulative, he's going to be playing all these games, he's going to be playing with people's contracts. That's how Diddy as a Scorpio fights back. But so during the same time, Tupac was convicted of sexual abuse in 1995, and that's why soon after he got shot 5 times at Diddy's studio, he was in jail, and he was in jail for 8 months. So listen, pretty much every man in this documentary, even the people that are kind of telling the story, they all sound shady to me. And everybody loves Tupac's music. He's a very talented lyricist. He's a very talented actor. He's very physically attractive. He's probably one of the best looking rappers in history, right? I find him attractive, but he was not a saint himself. And all of these men, they all treated women like trash. Some of these men, they treated them worse. Diddy was obviously on the probably the worst end of it, but Tupac was convicted of sexual abuse. So this is not just allegations. He was tried in a court of law, and he was found guilty of sexual abuse, and he spent 8 months in prison. So he did not deserve for his death to be set up the way that it was and manipulated in the way that it was by Diddy. But all I'm saying is that all of these men in this story are problematic in their own way. And people love Tupac, but Tupac is not a saint. Biggie beat women. Biggie was known for beating women. So all of these men in the story treated women like trash, and it just seemed like in the early '90s, in the hip hop arena, it was just the norm for men to treat women like trash, and people didn't really blink an eye, which is why people like Diddy, who was doing even worse stuff to people, was able to get away with it because yes, he had both male and female victims, but I think in the beginning in the '90s, most of his victims were women, and they were black, and nobody cared what black women had to say at that time. So then now Diddy befriended this guy named Keefe D, who was a Southside Crip. And then Tupac gets into this fight in Las Vegas and beats up Keefe D's nephew. And that's what led to him getting shot. Now, Suge knew this whole time who shot Tupac because Suge was in the car when Tupac got shot, and Suge actually got shot himself, but obviously he survived. And I think Suge should have just told, right? Suge should have just told the police who shot Tupac, and that would have cleared up so many things. And then, especially if he told back at that time, it could have, the police could have found the paper trail that would have left back to Diddy. But now so much time has passed. I think part of the reason why Diddy was able to get away with, playing in the background and doing all this stuff, because nobody was talking. And I feel like maybe if Suge had just told the police who shot Tupac, the police could have put everything together, and maybe Diddy would have been in jail, and it would have saved a lot of victims. So all that all that no snitching stuff in the black community is really problematic, and it has like ripple effects down the line that people didn't even know about. So Diddy is connected to this Keefe D person, and Tupac got into a fight with Keefe D's nephew, and then now Tupac ends up dead. But the story is so convoluted, and apparently Diddy said some things that he wanted Tupac dead, but he never gave the money, or the money went to a middle person that wasn't Keefe D, and that middle person never gave the money. So like from a like legal perspective, it's kind of hard to prove that Tupac's death was a direct result of Diddy paying for his death, because number one, a lot of people wanted Tupac dead. Diddy was not Pac's only enemy, and that's shown like in the documentary. Um, one of the guys who's being interviewed, he said that lots of men were jealous of Pac, and he said that men were in jail when he was in jail. A lot of people were celebrating when Tupac got shot the first time in New York. So Tupac had a lot of enemies. So just based on facts, there was no way to prove that uh, Tupac's killing was a paid hit, because the money. It doesn't seem like the money actually ever got to Keefe D. So did Tupac get killed because Diddy wanted him to be killed, or because Diddy paid for him to get killed? Or did Tupac get killed because he got into a fight willingly with Keefe D's nephew, and the fact that probably there were other haters that wanted Tupac dead? So it's really not clear. I mean, Diddy played a part of it, and maybe he was uh, part of it, or maybe he was behind it, but legally, based on what they're saying in the documentary, it's very cloudy, and it just didn't sound like there was like enough evidence to tie Diddy directly to Pac's death. But again, maybe if Suge had snitched, it's not even snitching, because you're telling them what happened. Snitching is if you committed a crime with a group of people, and you committed a crime and then you tell on the other people who committed the same crime with you, that's snitching. But in this particular case, Suge was a victim of a shooting along with Tupac, so he should have just told the police who shot him. That's not actually snitching. Okay, but anyway, at this point, Tupac is dead, and Biggie's sophomore album is coming out. So Biggie is on a promotional tour for his new album, Life After Death. And Diddy set it up that he needs to go to LA to do promo. And Biggie did not want to do promo. And Diddy purposely put Biggie in a dangerous situation, and actually kept Biggie in LA longer than he wanted to be, because the plan was that after LA, Biggie would go to London to continue his press tour. And Diddy actually canceled the London flight and told Biggie to stay in LA to do more press. And obviously, we know what happened after that. Then Biggie got shot in LA, and Diddy didn't cooperate with the investigation. And I mean, it's pretty obvious that this was a setup. Um, but again, uh, it was hard to find the evidence. And then I'm wondering if Kirk Burroughs even, told the police what happened, because nobody wanted to talk to the police at the time. And even in the documentary, Kirk said that, this is strange. Like he's, we had this whole big plan that I had planned way ahead of time about what Biggie was supposed to be doing in London. And very last minute, Diddy just canceled all of that. So I'm wondering if Kirk actually told the police that at the time, or is he just saying this now, like years later? So yeah, bringing all these details like so many decades later, isn't really helping the case. So now Biggie's dead, and there's a funeral, and Diddy actually used Biggie's money for the funeral. And Diddy said he was going to throw like the biggest funeral New York has ever seen, and it's going to be a big celebration of Biggie's life. But all the money that was supposed to go to Biggie's family and to Biggie's mother, he used a lot of the money for the funeral. And Biggie's death made Diddy more famous. And then Diddy released his first solo album, No Way Out, just a few months after Biggie's death. And then that song, I'll Be Missing You, was supposed to be a tribute to Biggie. And that was like probably Diddy's biggest like crossover song. Like that song pushed him into the arena of pop music based on Biggie's death. All right, so now we're going on to episode 3, and now they're talking about the relationship between Diddy and Kim Porter. And then there's like a man talking during the documentary, and he confirms that Diddy did beat on Kim Porter and that he would stand outside of the room while he could hear Kim getting beat. And another ain't shit man who didn't protect women and watched and listened to Diddy beat on women and didn't do anything about it. Then next, they talk about the nightclub incident in New York, where there was a shooting in the nightclub and a woman got shot in the face at the club, and she testified against Diddy and said that Diddy was the one who shot me, and she has kept that same story for 20 years. When she got shot in the face, she saw who shot her, and she's been saying the same story ever since it happened. And she testified in court that Puff Daddy shot her, and he was still found not guilty, and everything was blamed on Diddy's artist Shine. And then Shine got 10 years in prison and got blamed for everything that happened during the shooting, and Diddy got away scot-free, even though that woman has been persistent over the years and like she was so brave to come forward and say Puff Daddy shot me, and no matter what nobody else said, she stuck to her story. And again, nobody listened to the black woman, and then Diddy got away with it. So now we're getting into the early 2000s where music is changing, and reality TV has gotten really popular. So this is where we go into making the band. And Diddy is basically using all these young, inexperienced contestants to to feed his fame even more. The show was all about Diddy yelling at these kids and getting them in line. And it's so weird looking back on it, because at this time Diddy was in his mid 30s, and then the contestants on the show were like 18, 19, 20. So you see like a grown ass man in his mid 30s yelling at a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds. I noticed for making the band that Diddy used the same manipulative tactics, because the same tactics that he used on Bad Boy Records, because on Bad Boy, he was signing a lot of artists that didn't have a lot of education. They were like, a lot of them were maybe like high school dropouts, and they were in the streets. So they might have been like street smart, but they were not book smart to really like understand the contracts and understand why they were getting screwed over. So he kind of used that same formula and brought that over to making the band. So even if these kids were maybe had a little bit more education, maybe they weren't from the streets, they could have been from like the suburbs and a good family. But the fact that these kids were so much younger than Diddy, right? And they're also starstruck by Diddy. At this point in the early 2000s, Diddy is at the top of his game. He's huge. He was everywhere at this point. So, number one, these kids are like 10, 15 years younger than him. Number two, these kids are kind of like starry eyed, and they're just putting like all their trust in him, like that Diddy is doing the right thing. And he wasn't. So the whole making the band series was just like a huge manipulation tactic. The first band was the band, and the second band was Danity Kane, and then the third band was Day 26. And they were all kind of just used to generate money. It was the same contract. So Babs from the first group, the band, she was explaining how, he gave her like a stack of paper, and he said, you have 24 hours to sign it. And she even took it to a lawyer, and the lawyer said like, well, this paperwork says you're going to be famous, but you're not really going to get any money. And she still signs it anyway, because she was 19, and she's like, it's Bad Boy Records, and she's from New York, she's from Brooklyn, like she's from New York. So Bad Boy was like huge in New York, she grew up on it. So like, he was basically able to take advantage of this younger generation of New Yorkers, especially like the first season, people like Babs, who like at that time, Puff Daddy and Biggie and Bad Boy, that was as New York as you could get. Like a lot of people who grew up in New York kind of like built their whole identity. Not everyone, but I'm saying like a lot of people, they built their whole identity around Bad Boy. And she was like, it's Bad Boy Records. Of course I'm going to cite it. I didn't care what the lawyer said. And then also, what's her name? Aubrey O'Day, who was in the second group, Danity Kane, she spoke up about how same thing about the contracts, but then also she was being uh, as, uh, sexually coerced. I'm trying not to. I'm trying to kind of align with YouTube guidelines, but she was being harassed by Diddy, and he was sending her these explicit emails saying basically saying that he wanted to sleep with her, and she says that she did not sleep with him, and that's where all his anger comes from. So if you watch the show, like towards like the end of that series for that group, he hated Aubrey. Like he was basically out to get Aubrey. He was like harder on her than everybody else. So according to her, that she actually did not sleep with him, and that's what caused him to have so much anger towards her, and then to ultimately break up the band because Aubrey was her own person. And she, even though yes, she followed Diddy, but she was also doing her own thing on the side, and she had her whole identity. So she did not allow him to have complete control over her, and she would not sleep with him. And I think Aubrey probably had more education than the people that he usually preys on, like his normal victims. She was actually supposed to go to school to be a lawyer. That was her original plan. So he did not get exactly what he wanted out of Aubrey, so that's when he started treating her like trash, and then ended up breaking up the group. And then the third group was Day 26. And yeah, their career did not get very far. Like this whole reality TV and putting together the groups and putting together albums, it was just like a way to funnel money back to Diddy. And these artists that worked with him, these groups, they really did not get really any money. So the same thing that he was doing back in the day, with the bad boy artists. Next, the documentary is up to where Cassie comes into the picture. So Cassie was dating Ryan Leslie. Ryan Leslie was an up and coming music producer in his like mid 20s, and he was part of like Next Selection music group. And then he did Cassie's first single, "Me and You." So he helped Cassie a lot in the very beginning of her career, and I believe that they toured in Europe together, and they were dating. And she was allegedly 18, and Ryan Leslie was allegedly 26. That's their story. And I say that because Cassie was a young model. She started modeling like as a child and as a teenager. And I've heard from other sources, this was not mentioned in the documentary, but I heard from other sources that Ryan Leslie discovered her while she was modeling. And at that time, she would have been in high school. So she was still in high school when she was modeling. So she might have been like 16 or 17 when Ryan first saw her. And then I believe it was like a makeup artist or a hairstylist who said that, oh, yeah, she can sing too. Cassie can sing. And then that's when they started their musical relationship together. He showed her the ropes. He produced for her. So Ryan Leslie was really Cassie's introduction into the music industry. And then she moved to New York from Connecticut at age 18. And allegedly, they say that's when her and Ryan started dating, when she was 18 and he was 26. So he is 8 years older than her. So Ryan Leslie is a little funny, in my opinion. So then after Diddy heard that single, and that single started getting popping in the club. So there was no music video yet; it was just a song. So that's when Diddy kind of infiltrated himself between Ryan Leslie and Cassie. And then there would be three of them in the recording studio. This is like from a witness who says this, that it used to be three of them in the recording studio together. And then after a while, it would just be Diddy and Cassie in the music studio together. So again, Diddy stole Cassie from Ryan Leslie, pushed Ryan Leslie out of it, and then that's when the music video was created, and she had other songs too. And I think Official Girl was like the first song that that Diddy, like where she was fully away from Ryan Leslie, and then she was fully under Diddy's grasp on Bad Boy Records. And then he started an intimate relationship with her while he was still with Kim Porter. So this was around the time where Cassie was kind of like his girlfriend to the public, and Kim Porter was like his girlfriend behind closed doors. But then after a while, Kim Porter had some type of self-respect, and that's when they kind of broke up. So that's where that whole on again off again relationship started. So he basically kept going back and forth between Cassie and Kim Porter. Kim Porter would break up with him, and then I'm sure he would probably do some extravagant gift or something, or for some reason they would get back together, or or they got back together for the kids, whatever. It was messy. So he signed Cassie to a 10-year or 10 album deal, and that was really unheard of for a brand new artist who hasn't even like proven themselves yet. So Cassie was signed to Diddy for a 10-year album, but he wasn't even working on albums for Cassie. As soon as he signed her, and she was like under his clutches, he stopped caring about her music, and then he was focused on his own music. So at that same time, remember, so this is around like the 2006 era, and then he started Dirty Money with Dawn from previously from Danity Kane, and then another woman named Kalina. And they had a couple of hits you might have heard of from like that 2006 2007 era. So they did have some hits that were on the radio. Dirty Money had 2 albums, and basically Cassie was just his girlfriend or his side piece. And even though she was signed to a 10-year album, he wasn't actually doing anything for her music career. And that's when the escorting kind of picked up. And then this is where in the documentary, the male escort that Cassie and Diddy used for 8 years came into the picture to tell his story. And this is a crazy looking prostitute. I'm sorry. All the money that Diddy has, he could have got a prostitute that looks something like something. Like, he is so odd looking. He is so weird looking. He has nasty, chapped, hyperpigmentation lips. And there's nothing wrong with, hyperpigmentation is normal, but his lips are chapped and crusty and nasty looking. And just like the way he holds his mouth, oh my God, this is such a gross looking man. And in the friggin' documentary, he just looks fucking gross. Like, when he comes on screen, it's like jump scare. Like, people paid to sleep with this man. Like, what? Like, what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He did Cassie so dirty. And Diddy made Cassie sleep with this man going on 8 years. And then Diddy would just be in the background watching Cassie and this disgusting looking man sleep together. And then he would control every move. So every like position they did, like he was in control of it. And then they would collect his like demon juice and play with it. And again, this went on for 8 years. And then Diddy would throw a party every year on Biggie's death. So it was some type of ritual. I don't know what type. It was very weird. Every year he would celebrate the death of Biggie, and it was giving sacrifice ritual that they were celebrating every year. And then every year he would hire that escort to come do a freak off every year on Biggie's death day. So if that's not a ritual, I don't know what is. The next clip they show Diddy meeting like the people of New York. So he's just going around shaking hands and giving hugs and kissing babies. Because, back then he had this whole image of, being the leader of New York or Mr. New York, or, oh yeah, he would call himself like the king of New York. And like they gave him like a key to the city and everything. So yeah, so in the Netflix documentary, they show him like chopping it up with one of the local New Yorkers who's a black guy. And I don't know why on all the photos I tried to find online, like they've blurred the guy's face that he was talking to, but they showed the man's face in the Netflix documentary. So it was just like a random black man, a fan that was saying hi to him, and they were like, shaking hands and hugging and dapping it up and everything like that. And then he gets into the car. Diddy gets into the car and he says, "Oh, I need hand sanitizer." Like touching all these people and hugging all these people, and I got to do it. I'm required. It just has to be done. But uh yeah, I feel like I need to get like have 30 showers and the shower in boiling water and put some hydrogen peroxide in boiling water and bathe in it. Like, nigga, really? Out of all the drugs you've done, of all the sexually deviant behavior you've done, shaking hands and hugging people makes you want to go uh, uh, jump in hydrogen peroxide when the escort told us that you like playing with demon juice, you like playing with peen juice. So you don't need hydrogen peroxide for that, but to hug your fans and to shake hands with your fans, you need hydrogen peroxide, but you can roll around in peen juice all day. That's crazy work. It was given he doesn't like the blacks. He don't like the blacks. He don't like the poors. He hates the demographic of people that made him rich. He hates the demographic of people that launched his career. And the funny thing is, a lot of his career, he has his fist up in the air. Black man this, black man that, black entrepreneurship, pro black this, blickety black black black, New York. But he doesn't give a fuck about the black people of New York. Look how he treats them. So all the black men, all the black people that are still supporting Diddy after all this information has come out. I have so many people, men, women, everybody in between has testified against how deviant and disgusting and abusive and violent he is. And there were still people at his court throwing baby oil on each other and then celebrating when he got the RICO charges dismissed, because he got convicted of the prostitution charges, but the RICO charges got dismissed. And then there was some creeps out there, some weirdo, and unfortunately they were black. Unfortunately, they were black. They were out there dancing and acting a damn fool, throwing baby oil on each other, celebrating that that he got away with the violence that he committed against people. And this man don't even want to shake your hand and hug you. He said he'd rather jump in a boiling hot tub than to shake your hand. That's crazy work. Y'all need to sit with that. Y'all need to be if anybody is still supporting Diddy, y'all should be ashamed of yourself. And that man don't even like your black ass. Now they show the Cassie abuse tape. It's that tape of Diddy assaulting her in the hotel right in front of the elevators when she was trying to escape. And this was the tape that broke the case, and it really opened the doors and opened the floodgates of all the assault victims to go forward. In the tape, we see that Cassie's running away with a bag, trying to get on the elevator. Diddy catches up to her, grabs her from like the back of the neck, um, you know, pulls her down to the ground. Cassie's on the ground and he's stomping her out, kicking her, beating her, abusing her. And then he literally drags her body. He pulls her by her hoodie and then drags her across the floor and brings her back into the hotel room. And it looks like, she was escaping a freak off. He was naked. He only had a towel and socks around him. And it was really Cassie that gave a lot of the victims hope and strength to come forward. And then the episode ends with like words on the screen that shows that there were 100 over 100 assault cases filed against Diddy, and then 77 of those cases are still pending. And then we move on to episode number 4, where another one of his victims is telling his story. And it's a producer named Little Rod who worked on the Love album. So this is around now like the 2022 era. Little Rod is recalling one of the first acts of violence that he saw while working with Diddy, that Diddy and his oldest son, Justin, go into the bathroom with someone, and then the person's name is G, and then a gunshot goes off, and then G is shot in the bathroom, and then Little Rod was made responsible for cleaning it all up, and Little Rod dragged the body outside so that the ambulance can come get it. And they basically changed the story, basically saying it was kind of just a hit and run, and the man was just on the street and it was a hit and run. They didn't tell the truth that this was a person who was actually in Diddy's building, in Diddy's bathroom, who got shot. And then that man who got shot, he kind of disappeared, and no one ever heard from him. I don't think he died. I think he got taken away in the ambulance, and it was just as like a unsolved case, like it was just like a drive-by case, and then everyone acted like nothing happened and just went back to work. And Little Rod, he saw like a lot of illegal activities, but he said he only cared about his career, and he was not he didn't really care about working for somebody evil. He knew Diddy was evil, and but because that Diddy is a gatekeeper, Little Rod wanted fame and success, so he said he was going to just do what Diddy wants him to do. And then Little Rod says that Diddy compares himself to God and Jesus, and only evil people do that. So, I mean, Diddy is a devil. There's a difference between being God fearing or being Christ like. But then, when you're saying that you are a God or that you are Jesus, that, then, that's a different story. And people who really believe in the word of God, they don't proclaim those type of things. And then Little Rod said that Diddy showed him gay porn, and then Diddy told Rod to start recruiting sex workers. And then I'm just gonna call him Rod because you're a grown ass man. I'm not calling you Little Rod. Like, what the fuck? You're a grown ass man. Okay, so then Rod says that Diddy kept everyone drugged around him, and the drugs were even like in the vents or something, and then that he had hidden cameras everywhere. And he says that he believes that he was assaulted because sometimes he woke up and there were women in the bed, and then sometimes he woke up sore and Diddy was in the bed with him. And then Little Rod uh was finished the album for Diddy and didn't get paid. And I'm like, did you not sign a contract for payment before working on the album? And it's like, I think they were working on the album for quite a few months. So I was like, I would think that you would ask for payment like at least once a month or something like that. But he said he was promised $29,000 and he didn't even get that. So he was not, he did not get paid for all the work that he did on the album. And apparently he did a lot of work on the album. He plays multiple instruments, and that Love album was actually Grammy nominated, and Lil Rod never got paid for it. So that's the only reason why Little Rod brought up his lawsuit and is telling his story, because he never got paid. So Little Rod, he doesn't care about victims. He helped to recruit sex workers. The only reason he's speaking up, in my opinion, is just because he didn't get paid and he wants to get his lick back. And who knows, maybe 50 Cent paid him to be part of this documentary. So maybe he's already gotten back the money he was supposed to get from Diddy. But I don't know. Lil Rod is another ancient man to me. I do believe that he was assaulted by Diddy. He was probably drugged and assaulted while he was unconscious by Diddy, but at the same time, he assaulted people too, or he also recruited people for Diddy to assault. So I don't know. Little Rod ain't shit. Yeah, he's a victim, but he still ain't shit either. And next we have Capricorn Clark, who is telling her story. So she started as Diddy's personal assistant, and then she got promoted to his brand manager. And then she said that she was aware of Diddy's bad side, but she worked to feed his good side, that she was really just focused on the business side of it and the branding and the marketing and the public image. And she said that there were other people around him, other employees that more so fed into Diddy's dark side and all his vices. And she said that was his, I believe, I don't know, I believe I don't know if she's his publicist, but she said KK was one of his employees that fed Diddy's dark side. And then I'm sorry, Capricorn, she recalls the time that she got kidnapped. And basically, she was at her home minding her business. And then Diddy storms in with a gun and confronts her about whether Cassie is dating Kid Cudi or not. And Capricorn says that he said basically like we're going to Kid Cudi's house. We got to go to Kid Cudi's house and find him. And then Capricorn says no, she doesn't want to go. But Diddy has a gun and threatens her and says, I don't give a f what you want to do. And he forces her to go to from forces her from her house to go to Kid Cudi's house. I mean, so that is textbook definition of kidnapping. So I don't know how Diddy didn't get charged with kidnapping when he literally used a gun and he brandished a weapon and moved somebody from one location to another location where when she said she didn't want to go. But I guess there wasn't just enough evidence for that. And then also it didn't help that Capricorn um, had social media posts where she was like praising Diddy. So I guess like public kind of like interpretation of that wasn't good. But kidnapping, like, to me it was kidnapping, because even if you like lock somebody in a room and tell them that they can't leave, that's kidnapping. Like if someone's trying to leave and you're blocking them from leaving somewhere, that's kidnapping. And in this case, he used the gun to remove her from her house and brought her to a different location. That's kidnapping to me. And I did remember like listening to some people on social media where they were trying to say that Capricorn was trying to claim kidnapping for when he took her to a park and threatened her, but that's not the case. I feel like there was misinformation that was being fed to social media, because when Capricorn is talking about kidnapping, she's specifically talking about when Diddy threatened her with a gun to bring her to Kid Cudi's house. But then on social media, I remember hearing some people saying like, it's not kidnapping when he took her to the park, because I think it was her first day of work, and then at the end of the workday, she willingly went to a park with him, and he said they wanted to talk about some things at the park, and then he threatened her because she had some type of connection with Suge Knight. I think she's best friends with Suge Knight's baby mama, and Diddy didn't know that. So then when he found out, he threatened her. And she did admit that she went to the park willingly, but obviously she didn't know she was about to be threatened at the park. But that's not what Capricorn said was kidnapping. So I don't know why on social media a lot of people were doing commentary saying that's not kidnapping. Capricorn never said that was kidnapping. She was talking about a completely different situation that clearly was kidnapping. So in that scene, that showed me that there was some misinformation that was fed to social media. And then we move on to the black juror, a black female juror that's shown in the documentary. And basically, she's saying that she did not believe anything that Capricorn said. And me, myself, watching the documentary, Capricorn seemed more genuine to me than the juror. The juror, she seemed very shady. And this is like a very serious topic. And just her demeanor was so weird. She was kind of smiling and laughing and being sarcastic, saying, like, oh, Capricorn's story didn't make sense. And it's very clear from the things that she said that she was a Bad Boy fan, and she should have never been on the jury. She was 100% pro Diddy in her stances. And the other issue is that the jury was not sequestered, so people like her were on the jury who already had a bias in favor of Diddy. And I believe she was being influenced by social media. And there was also like an Indian man who was a juror, and he was very ignorant. He didn't see a problem with a woman getting beaten if she keeps going back to him. So she was talking he was talking about Cassie, and he's saying, yeah, he would beat her, but she would go back to him and they would go on trips and things like that. I'm like, what difference does that make? A crime was still a crime. Assault is still assault. And it's weird because I believe that the court, they give you the definitions of crimes when you're on the jury. So if you are beating somebody, and Cassie clearly had scars all over her body and evidence that she was getting beat, and you saw the woman on tape getting beaten, that's assault. That's a crime. And that person should go to a jail for assault. It doesn't matter if after the assault took place that the victim goes back and they go on trips together or she gets gifts. That doesn't erase the fact that a crime was committed and she was assaulted. So I don't know what the heck he was talking about. He's given that he beats women. And honestly, he's basically a stereotype of Indian men, because I've heard in the past that Indian men are very misogynistic and they don't treat their wives well. And, he's giving that. And then, the black woman is weird because uh, she didn't believe Capricorn's crying, because Capricorn was like crying when she was like retelling her story. And the juror says like, oh, this happened 10 years ago, why are you so emotional and crying? And she said that I guess the fact that Capricorn was emotional while telling her story to her, this juror, isn't believable to her. So that didn't really make sense to me, because what does it matter if it happened 10 years ago? Like, have you never been to therapy before? When you go to therapy, you're telling your business from 10, 20 years ago, from when you were like 5 years old. And yeah, people are going to cry when they recall traumatic events that happened to them. So what does someone crying while they're retelling a story make it like not believable, when that's kind of like a normal human reaction when you're going back to a time when you felt hurt? I don't know. People have called Diddy out multiple times over the years, and for some reason, he was able to get away with it because of people like this black female juror and people like this Indian juror who don't believe victims and very misogynistic. Both of these jurors that they showed in the documentary, they're both very misogynistic in their beliefs, and that's why Diddy was able to get away with it for so long. And now we're finally at the end of my commentary, and honestly, I'm drained. I'm glad that I'm glad Diddy's finally being seen for the person who he really is, and I don't think he got enough time in jail. I'm happy that he did get the 15 months for the prostitution, but unfortunately, the feds were not able to fully prove their case to get him more time, and he is going to get away with a lot of things because so much decades have passed. Where a lot of the evidence for those things he did is lost now. But I just hope that this documentary really shows things from a different perspective, and people better understand the victims and better understand, you know, how Diddy was able to rain terror on so many people and get away with it, and that hopefully now people see the signs and something like this won't ever happen again. So, if you liked my commentary, if you made it to the end, it sounds like you like what I had to say. So please like, comment, and subscribe, and then tell me in the comments what you think about my commentary or just your general thoughts on the documentary. And I'll talk to you later. Thank you.